let's look at what are contemporary issues. What is the word contemporary? Now, contemporary is nothing. If you look at the Oxford definition of contemporary, it basically talks about things which occur with time or occur at the same time. Now, sometimes what you see when you're working within organizations is that you will see that there will be a lot of issues which happen together or a lot of problems which come together. So that is the reason of using the word contemporary.
Yeah, and like living or occurring at the same time.
Same time, yes. And the other thing that we look at is sometimes what happens is some of these problems or issues actually happen, repeatedly in the organization. So as an HR manager, what typically we tend to do is that we create some sort of a procedure or a process to be able to address these issues or problems which occur from time to time and are the same issues which are occurring again and again from time to time. And let me give you an example. Now, one of the key activities that HR managers do in the organization is they always look at recruitment. People join the company, they end up leaving the company, they join the organization, they end up leaving the organization. Now, recruitment is one such activity which happens again and again. Now, in some cases, this could become an issue is because if you're recruiting for a CEO and somebody in the top management ends up leaving the organization, then the recruitment process for that particular position or that role is a very long process because it involves going through lots of hoops and hurdles to ensure that you get the right leader for the organization. And in those becomes a contemporary issue. Right? You do not recruit your CEO again and again, but if the CEO ends up and you need to find the right individual, you will have to do a series of interviews, discussions, involve recruitment agencies, get the right candidate in place so that they have a right person in the right with the right experience leading the company in that particular situation. So that is where recruitment can also become a contemporary issue. But again, there is a process which the HR has in place, and they write that process because the CEO will not just be appointed by the HR manager, but the CEO will be appointed by the board. And in that case, this recruitment is not a simple process of recruitment, but it is a complex process, and that is why it is called a contemporary issue. And because the process for recruiting that person into that position will be a long drawn process, that means it will not be something that sometimes what happens is you are interviewing for a receptionist or an office manager, and that is something which people in the junior management can manage. They take a few interviews, get the CVs, and then obviously recruit the person. They do not need to take the permission as long as they have the sanction of the budget and the sanction for the person to be taken. But if you have a senior enough person being recruited, you have a lot of things through which you have to go through as a process in the organization before that person is finally installed in that position. Isn't it?
Yes.
Have you noticed that? So there are some of these issues or problems which arise from time to time, whether it's in the current or in the, obviously these are issues which you can only discuss and discover if they're happening in the present time. You cannot call an issue which happens in the future, or you cannot call that as an issue which happens in the past. So the key point here is these are present time issues that we get to see. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, going further, so what we want to do is identify some of these, time and again occurring problems which HR has to deal with. So let's look at some of these things in terms of, some bit more detail. So now that we know clearly, HR as a function came across after the, World War II, when industrialization began to happen. A lot of people started to work in factories and businesses and organizations, and the management of human resources became important, and that is why HR as a function evolved over the years after the post 1940s. Now, organizations obviously treat employees as a resource, because just like you have infrastructure, capital, finance, buildings, machinery as resources, human resource is also employees are also a very important resource, and they are considered under the HRM or human resource from that aspect. Now, the reason why this resource is very important is because humans or people in general are intelligent resources. they are able to not just manage themselves, but they are able to control, manage, manipulate, adapt other resources as and when required by the organization. So if you keep a person in finance, that person will be able to monitor and also use the company finances in a very, very judicious manner, because that resource knows how to use the capital and the finances in what time, at what location, and for what aims and objectives of the organization. So this particular resource, when we say cannot be copied, is because people have lots of knowledge. They have knowledge, they have experience, and this cannot be copied easily. So the management of human resources is important, and sometimes these issues that we get to see crop up in the organization because it leads to conflict. Let's look at a situation wherein you have a couple of people working in the same department. And what tends to happen is that because they are doing well and they are doing, let's put it this way, all of them are in sales, for example, and they are doing quite well. They're achieving their targets. They're able to meet the goals and objectives set. Now, at some stage, there is a differentiation in terms of the salary levels that they have. And that could be because of various factors. It could be that, some people have more than 10 years of experience. Some people have been performing consistently well for 3 years. Some have been doing well for 1 year or 5 years. And that is where, and some of them have been working within the organization for, a number of years. So experience within the organization, consistent performance creates differentiation in their salaries. And that could become a contentious issue, which HR will have to solve at some stage. They will say, okay, I don't care. You have a lot of experience, that's fine. You're achieving the targets, I'm achieving the targets. It's not related to past performance. So why is your salary different from my salary? So when you come across these issues, what happens is HR then tends to segment these issues into 3 or 4 different types. One is they look at talent management. They look at recruitment. They look at retention. They look at performance management. And these then become tools which HR uses essentially to be able to manage human resources within organization. Is that okay?
Yes.
Now, when we talk about certain issues which are, classify them as contemporary issues, one of the key issues that you get to see, because of which there's a lot of problems which arise, is the issue of communication. People say something, but the other person might perceive something very different. He or she might look at it from a different understanding. And in 9 out of 10 cases, it becomes more easier in terms of if communication is not proper, open, or, as required within the organization, it tends to create issues within the organization. So communication in most cases is classed as an issue or as a contemporary issue, because this is kind of the root the main place from which most misunderstandings start in the organization, conflicts start in the organization. So we identify this as an issue, and basically what it is defined as is initiation of communication by inviting listing of challenges in the organization which they're going to face is a route which HR managers, take. So what they do is they ask the people that, okay, please can you list down top 3 problems that you face, or top 3 hurdles that you face, which kind of do not, help you to do your job properly. What are the challenges that you are facing? So there are various ways that the HR manager takes feedback, and the HR department takes feedbacks from the employees within the organization. And that one of the ways through which they take feedback to avoid this conflict because of communication is they say, okay, could you tell us the key challenges that you're going to be facing this year? Could you tell us what are the 3 things or 2 things that you want HR to solve for you or enable for you so that you're able to do your job effectively? And this route helps the HR or HR department to seek solutions from employees. That means you're asking the person who's going to be facing the problem or the issue to also try and give you some idea in terms of how they can solve this problem or the issue. And this is basically a 2-way process in the organization, because this is something which they take, the process of feedback is done mostly in organizations on a monthly basis or a quarterly basis, so that there is free flow of ideas, and also there is a very clear, there's a very clear path defined. If you have problems, then it's an open door policy. Please come in and report, or please come in and discuss, so that we can help solve this as a issue, or before it becomes a problem. So here the HR looks at initiating a communication plan or a communication system in which every employee the organization is able to highlight challenges or the problems that they are facing. And this is generally done face to face. It could be done through emails, it could be done through meetings, or it could be done through one-on-one personal discussions to understand what problems or issues each individual employee or the department faces, and how HR can then address it. In large organizations, you will see that HR would send across a survey or maybe some sort of a questionnaire which the employees are supposed to fill in, and that then becomes a process through which they get this feedback. And then, based on the top challenges which have come across, they start to then address these challenges by putting some solutions into place. And you will also see that in some complaint box or a grievance in the organization. Have you seen that there is a complaint box in the organization sometimes?
Yes.
And the reason why they put it is because sometimes employees are not confident or comfortable enough to discuss issues face to face. They want to be remaining anonymous. So in those cases, what they do is there is an the HR puts some sort of a complaint box or a grievance box in which the employee can come anonymously drop the complaint, and then they look at it so that it is not pinpointed to a particular employee that you are having this problem, you've raised it, and all that stuff.
As in my experience as well, I saw when there is like a bullying or abusing at work,
Yes.
there is like counseling and grievance procedures. Is that all under the HR?
HR, that is correct. So some of them, if they cannot be resolved, they have to be referred to ACAS, which is an independent body which looks after these issues. If you're a member of the union, then the union steps in, and those kind of things are all a part of the HR process. But they are under something called contemporary issues. These are things which do not happen normally. But if they happen, then there has to be a clear, defined, procedure through which they can be resolved to the amicable or the liking of the employee and the organization.
Exactly.
Right. The second, issue that we look at is resource planning, or basically recruitment in general. Now, as you know that, lots of employees sometimes within the organization, there are lots of times when an employee leaves the organization. Sometimes employees you will find leave the organization because they are not getting any growth. Sometimes they leave because they've been superseded. Sometimes they leave because, there is a redundancy. Sometimes they end up leaving because they find a better opportunity elsewhere. So HR has to continuously look at planning for resources, and that planning of resources is nothing but recruitment as a process.
Training, enough training as well, isn't it?
That is correct. Yeah, there could be a reason wherein employees feel that I do not have any training. I've not had any training and development within the organization, and because of which I'm stagnating. I'm not learning or picking up new skills. So that is also an area today what we get to see a lot of people choosing to leave the organization and go into an organization which has a focus on training and development. So here, the basic assumption is that when you look at issues which are related to employment, things like if you have a CEO or somebody in the top management, like a director or vice president being appointed, they will normally have, if you see, long probation period. That means their trial period or probation period is much longer than what it is for a receptionist or a junior management or a middle management or a middle manager. So a CEO typically gets appointed and they might have 6 to 9 months in some sort of a trial period. And sometimes this becomes a contemporary issue because they say, okay, I've been performing well, you've only made the appointment for 2 years, and out of the 2 years, you're saying my probation period is going to be 9 to 10 months, which is high enough. So there is a very high risk strategy. So this becomes, what is called a contemporary issue. Sometimes you get to see that multicultural or diversity within the organization, becomes an issue. That means a lot of organizations actually shy away from recruiting people which are, having special needs or have some sort of a disability. And this then can become a discriminatory issue at the HR side, and also then is classified under something called a contemporary issue. Because what you cannot do as an organization is you have to be fair and just, and you have to have equality and diversity in terms of recruitment as a process. Sometimes you get to see that, I did very well, my interviews went okay, I went up to the stage 3, but then I was certainly dropped off in favor of another candidate. And that normally sounds, something which is discriminatory. So all organizations look at a policy like a equality and diversity policy, a discrimination policy, which the employees can kind of appeal to or use in the case if they feel that, they have been discriminated against when either being selected for an internal promotion or, from a process of externally being recruited. The other issues are multi-departmental training and leadership development program. Now here, when I say multi-departmental training, what I mean is that there are some people within the organization, sometimes they will feel that, every time there's a training opportunity which comes up, only a few set of people are recommended to do the training and others are always left out. This is also a contemporary issue, because normally managers would want people who are performing well, employees who are, achieving the aims and objectives, setting the set targets, are the ones which are preferred to go under training because they want them to progress. But this does not mean that the underperforming employees or employees which have been working within the organization have a support role do not get into training and development. So this can also be a contemporary issue. Again, leadership development program. These are all issues which can be looked at minutely and sometimes lead to contemporary issues or discrimination because this person is favored more than the other candidate, or this person is a more favored candidate because he is somebody who's liked by the senior management. Sometimes you get to see these words or hear these words, or you get these emails. So that is where, again, this has to be looked at very, very carefully. Yeah?
Yes.
Okay. Now, so similarly, when you look at recruitment, there is two parts to the process, recruitment and selection. So in the selection process, sometimes you find job descriptions for certain people are quite lengthy, elaborate. Job requirements are discriminatory, that they will put something in the job specification which would mean only a specific kind of a candidate can actually end up applying for that job, and that then is being looked at again as an issue. So here, if you look at an example, is that most businesses, when they recruit, what they do is they end up putting a requirement of minimum of a university degree with 2-1 grades. Correct? Exactly. Now this, to a certain extent, if it is it is accepted now currently in the process, is that employers can actually dictate what kind of minimum background they want in a candidate. They cannot say that we are looking at only distinction holders or merit holders. So one of the criteria which have been looked at and has been shortlisted is that if they want a person to come in and fulfill that role, they have to generically advertise saying that a bachelor's or a university degree with a minimum of 2-1 classification is required, or 2-1 grades is required. They cannot say merit and distinction. So these are very specific requirements which HR has to be aware of when they advertise roles or vacancies or positions, whichever word you use, when they are looking at recruiting people. So that should not mean that it should be able to discriminate against people who have had a degree but have not made it in terms of getting it as a good score or have a good grading in that particular field. And that means that sometimes this then can directly relate to the skills and capabilities of the person that they are trying to recruit. And in those cases, if I look at extrapolating further, what that would mean is if they have a merit holder or if they have a distinction holder, they could have higher salary for that person. That is where they could differentiate, but rather than saying we only want merit and distinction holders to apply for this role, is going to be discriminatory.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
So these are things which HR managers have to be aware of, and these are skills that you have to pick up so that when you are in that position to be able to make that application or put out that job advert, you have to take care of these minor things as far as the advertisements are concerned, so that you are not caught out or to be seen to be discriminatory when you are kind of putting these vacancies out for organizations.
Exactly.
The other The other bit which I will pick up is training and development. Now, again, training and development, when you see, this is a typical issue when we look at, say, for example, a telecoms company. An example that I've taken here is when you look at, say, a telecom company like Vodafone. What tends to happen is that they, as a Vodafone as a company, basically looks at recruiting fresh graduates or people who have just come out of their schooling, and they are looking at taking them on as an apprentice. Now here, what the HR manager could do is that they would primarily want to get people to work in the positions through the apprenticeship route, wherein they know that they can pay a lower salary and they are primarily being funded by the government. So here again, some part of the discrimination can happen because you're using the system to kind of use cheap labor or manpower and then trying to bring them in through the route of training and development, because apprentices are essentially looking at learning the jobs and the tricks of the trade, and obviously are under kind of some sort of a training to be able to get that experience and then apply for a job outside. So here the HR department or the government policies typically restrict companies from taking apprenticeships on for more than 12 months. So if the apprentice has been working with the company for 6 months or longer, then they have to give the apprentice the opportunity or a job offer to be able to join the organization, because it found the person to be useful and the person is doing and meeting the requirements of your obligation to be able to offer a contract to that person basis the job description which the person has been, or the basis the role which the person has been actually doing. And this then can become a contemporary issue, because if they take the apprentice on, the apprentice works for 12 months, and after that they don't give him a job offer, but actually say, okay, thank you very much, your training has ended with us, and we no longer require your services. But they've used that person or in that particular position for about 12 months, and having to not offer a job contract would then become a issue in terms of non-employment. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Now, at the senior level, what we do get to see is there are performance management techniques. Now, there are lots of performance management techniques which the HR uses in particular to manage the employees, because at some stage, performance management is related with something called, is directly proportional to your financial, emoluments or remuneration as far as salary and wages are concerned. So in this aspect, when we look at, at the senior level, sometimes when you get to see that the person has met his goals, has achieved the objectives, and during the appraisal, what they do is they do the performance management, and through the performance management, they realize that the employee is continuously performing well, and he's meeting the regulations set and the targets set by the organization, but they do not kind of give him the fair share in terms of the rewards, which is in terms of either bonus, incentive, pay rise, or a promotion. And that then leads to, that then becomes basically nothing but an issue. And this would mean that what they would do is they would basically say, okay, you've done the targets, that's fine, that is what is expected, and you're not going to get any additional bonus on this. The employee in that case then can kind of go back and say that, okay, my job description clearly said if I achieve 100% target, that's fine. But if I achieve 110%, then I'm due for an incentive, or I should get this additional payout. If I do 150%, I should get this payout. And in those cases, the manager and the department has to be very, very careful, because when their contracts are drawn up, and if they define those incentive slabs or reward slabs in the contracts, then they have to be honored when the employee actually hits or exceeds or meets or exceeds the target. And that is where that fair policy system comes in, is because if that has been documented in the employment contract and the performance meets the management criteria which has been set, then the person is definitely due for the reward or the incentive which has been prescribed in the job contract. This helps in employee motivation. This obviously keeps the employees loyal to the organization. And in some cases, what you will see is that the employees, because they're highly motivated and loyal to the organization, their performance is much, much better, and it helps the organization increase, their customer base or get rapid progress in terms of market share, and in overall it is very good for the organization. Now, where the performance management becomes a contemporary issue is that if you have performers in the organization which are doing well, they are achieving 100% target, then there needs to be a base minimum, increase in the salary. If somebody is doing 110%, then a smaller increase. If somebody is doing 120%, 50%, what has been defined as per the slabs, there should be a fair reward system in place for every step of the management, where, basically motivating the employee as long as they are meeting their aims and objectives. So that is where you will get to see that sometimes organization create grades in the organization. So you're at grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, or whatever grade, and within the grades they have some sort of a system. So if you're a general manager, your salaries could vary between, say, 45,000 to 65,000. But the variation is because of the number of years of experience, the number of years of working within the organization, the type of qualifications you hold, how you basically, manage your team and objectives. And in general, some of them could be qualitative, some of them could be quantitative factors which kind of affect that grading of salary. Have you heard or come across that in organizations?
Yes.
So you will get to see that most employers actually advertise a job vacancy, they will put a slab, or they use a word called circa, somewhere in the region of CIRCA. So somewhere in the region of, that means if they're looking at taking on, say, a practice manager in the NHS, what they would do is they will say, we are looking at paying circa salary would be, say, 45,000. That means between 45 and 50,000, depending on the age, experience, previous background, qualification, and other things which they define in the job description. So performance management, it can become a contemporary issue in some cases when you have some of these things documented in the job description but not being delivered once the employees actually meet that particular set target or that aim and objective. And in those cases, some of these things can be becoming an issue because they are not being paid off, or the incentive is not being given, the bonus is not being given, or the requisite promotion has not been given. Sometimes you get to see that in most organizations, they put some sort of a slab saying that, okay, if you've joined in this position, the next promotion can only happen in 3 to 5 years, subject to you meeting the criteria 1, 2, 3, 4. And that criteria would be that if you're a general manager, then if you've joined as a GM and you want to, your next promotion level would be a director, and that will happen in a period of 4 years, provided you're consistently meeting the targets, your team is consistently performing, you are able to, deliver on time or whatever the objectives have been set. And last but not the least, under your department, there is a less than 10% employee turnover. That means less than 10% of your employees end up leaving the organization. So if these 4 objectives are met, then after 4 years of your service, you'll be eligible to become, or you'll be eligible for a promotion, and that promotion will take you from a GM to a director level. And these are things which again can become issues if the procedure is not followed by the HR, or some of the things seem to be, sometimes what happens is some of these things are removed as barriers for certain candidates within the organization because he's a favorite of the CEO, or he's a favorite of this particular person, and things like that. And that is where then it becomes, a contemporary issue. Some of the other issues that we would discuss, and I will kind of put it down here, other contemporary issues. These are traditional issues which I'm discussing, but some of the other issues that could be discrimination. These are generic issues. It could be discrimination in terms of recruitment, discrimination for promotion, discrimination in terms of, hiring the right sort of. So it could be under various aspects. It could be to do with technology. That means sometimes what happens is within the organization, we have lots of different people who have different types of capabilities on using technology. So some of us are very good in MS Office, some of us are very good in Windows, some of us can use a Mac, but not all of us are very good in using, say, a particular technology like Windows 10. But that should not be a discriminatory issue as far as promotion is concerned or salary is concerned and things like that. So these are some of the other contemporary issues that we get to see, which are generic, and they are, something which can be applied, in different situations depending on, the organization. Some of the other issues which I'm going to list out, say for example, could be, say for example, work-life balance.
What about bullying harassment? Is it coming under discrimination as well?
Which one, sorry?
Bullying harassment.
Bullying and harassment, yes. So this is an issue which will come under, say, for example, legislation. Bullying and harassment. So discrimination will be a generic one under which you can put, sexual discrimination. I could put that under which I could say bullying and harassment.
Financial.
Yeah, bullying and harassment. It could be, say, financial. Under legislation, it could be, say, for example, financial. Salary related. It could be that a company has a policy wherein what they do is they do not encash your holidays. For example, if you accrue holidays, but in some cases, on a case-to-case basis, the holidays can be encashed for certain employees, but it has not been done for you. Then it becomes a issue because of discrimination.
Age, I think is age discrimination as well. Yeah.
Yeah, that is correct. So age discrimination, that's very good. Age discrimination, yes. Age discrimination is again because of age. Say for example, religion.
Religion as well, yeah.
It could be because of age, religion, caste, and your type. Say for example, a lot of organizations say no to LGBT nowadays, but LGBTs, if you are being discriminated against that, then this is one form of discrimination which can happen. Legislation could be a discrimination because sometimes when the government changes recruitment and HR roles, or basically against the Recovery Act, which is in some cases healthcare, for example, has not been provided. It is a part of your contract, so that is an ignorance of. Sometimes people have pension in place, but the companies are not able to pay out. So again, there's a legislation for that. So those are issues which can be related to legislation in particular. Work-life balance is when sometimes what tends to happen is that you will get to see that today, maternity leave is only or was only available to ladies, but now paternity leave has come in, which is available to fathers. So if you have had a baby in the family, and what they're saying is the father should also be able to bond with the baby and should be able to take some days or time off. So the females would get maybe a longer period of up to 26 weeks as maternity leave, but the paternity leave has been brought in to bring in some sort of a work-life balance, and the fathers can also spend time and careers from their aspect. They can take a break in their career and help in the growing and upliftment of their children, upbringing of their children. So in modern day life, what we do get to see is couples, between in the family are both working, and that is where the company needs to create a flexible working environment so that the husband and wife, they are able to maintain a work-life balance, so that if they have to take certain days off, the husband can take off and stay with the children, and the wife can work, the wife can take off, and the husband can then go back to the office. So that is something called a work-life balance. And these are general contemporary issues which are also being looked at within the context of HR. Is that okay?
Yes, yeah.
And then I guess these are some of the self-explanatory issues, things like change and conflict management. What tends to happen is when you have a change of management, or when you have a change of technology happening within the organization, if proper training and is not organized by the HR department, it can lead to some sort of a conflict. People, might not be willing to adopt a particular process or a procedure. It has been, which has been implemented. A lot of organizations, when they plan, a shift in technology, like for example, when a lot of businesses, organizations have Windows 7, and now they are moving to Windows 10. So what they tend to do is they tend to phase out this change across the organization, because they do not want people to be disturbed or affecting their work schedules, because they need a bit of training and development to be able to work on Windows 10 rather than Windows 7, because which is a change, a sea change in terms of how they will use the PCs or the tablets and other things within the organization. So that then is looked at under a change. Sometimes you get to see that businesses outside put across under new management. A company has been taken over, and what has happened is a new management has come in, and the management style and the way the culture of the organization, is different from the previous culture and the management in the organization. And this happens normally when you have a merger and acquisition or a company being taken over. And in those cases, what you do get to see is that some employees become apprehensive. Some employees, they are more favored because they have been close to the management. And some employees then lead to what you call, some employment leads to redundancies. That means people are laid off. So here, again, it could be an issue wherein if the policies are not, transparently formulated and, explained to employees, this can lead to a bit of discrimination and because of this change, and can create conflict within the organization when it comes to, the changeover. So these are all issues that we have to look at under the context of what you call contemporary issues. And these issues we need to be, as an HR manager, need to be aware of, so that we are having the resources and also a good understanding to be able to kind of predict these issues. And once we predict these issues, we are in a position to clearly know how to solve these issues. Mm-hmm. And these issues are basically, called contemporary because they're ongoing. They happen, in the present times when you're working within the organization. And in some cases, these issues, the occurrence of these issues happens repeatedly, and because of which the HR managers have to be aware of it, and they should have ready-made solutions at hand, which are nothing but documented policies and procedures to be able to deal with these issues effectively. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, good stuff. So that basically covers, this particular topic, as well as the learning outcome, to understand, what is a contemporary issue? List out these contemporary issues. After we've listed out these contemporary issues, we need to understand what and how and why they occur, and when they occur, how the HR department actually looks at resolving these issues by using policies and procedures which are documented within the organization as per their vision and mission. Mm-hmm. Is that okay?
Yeah.
And then one particular thing which I will put across, which is the other contemporary issues important, is the issue of, say, globalization. This is a very modern issue in terms of contemporary issues, because when we look at globalization, a lot of companies, a lot of businesses today, have operations across the globe. Mm-hmm. Now, if the business does well, let's look at the example of Tesco here. As you know, Tesco operates in 12 different countries, but Tesco actually pulled out of America operations, I think, in 2014, and which led to 12,000 job losses or redundancies in the US. Now, because the Tesco operations in terms of Tesco stores was a loss-making operation in the US for Tesco's from the time they started for about, almost 10 years, the management then took a strategic decision of closing the business down in Americas, because they felt that they are not able to gain traction and they are not going to be profitable in this territory at all. And after having a look at it, what they did was, because of the business is global, that they have operations in so many countries, the organization did not try to kind of, adjust, or, when I say the word adjust, is basically they did not make any attempts to give those employees in the US any opportunities to join the business elsewhere. They just made them redundant. So globalization in some organizations which are large and have operations in various countries becomes a contemporary issue, is because what they would have thought they should have done is that they should have given some middle, junior and senior management the opportunity to work across in other parts of the Tesco business. They could have given the options of relocation and other things in order to not just lay off those 12,000 employees, but also give them the opportunity to work elsewhere in the Tesco business as an employer, they could have afforded that. They had the means, they had the money, and also because their operations are profitable elsewhere, they could give that employee the opportunity to at least say, do you want to work in another geography and, in a similar role within the company? But they did not offer that. So globalization in the case of, Tesco, when they closed that down, also led to a lot of losses, legal cases, because, it became an issue that if you knew that you're going to close it down, why did you not give enough notice to the employees before you decided to close the operations? Or when you try to sell the operations, you should have kind of ensured that the employees, when you are selling the operations to your competitor in US, you should have ensured that the employees within the organization should have been taken on by the competitor, and rather than laying them off or making redundancies.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this is equality and diversity and globalization is one of the major contemporary issues and challenges with the HR face, because a lot of organizations today have workforce which are coming from different countries. They have operation in different countries. They have to depend on these, and that is where they should not discriminate and should steer clear of the of these issues by clearly documenting these policies on their website, equality and diversity, discrimination policy, so that there is no room or no scope for these issues to arise within the organization when they start operations in a new geography or in a new country.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yes.
Good stuff. So I'm going to try and end the session here, and I'm going to send you a copy of this presentation along with a handout, which basically will give you a bit more reading material on what the contemporary issues are, and they will give you some more kind of meat on the bones for you to be able to read and understand some of these issues in a bit more detail.
Okay.
Is that okay? And
okay.
Next week, what we are going to do is we are going to start it to be, again, I'm looking at one of the optional units to begin with, and that unit is going to be project management, which is 6.2.
6.2 project.
Right?
Yeah, project management.
In your case, just to very briefly look at, just 1 second. Go down to the spec. So essentially what I want to do is, I know we have started the research unit for which you are drawing up the proposal. We have completed today the human resources management. And then, what we are looking at doing is we are looking at picking up project management as a unit. You have already done risk management in your previous college.
Yeah.
I'm going to look at, obviously you've sent us the assignment, but we're going to send you some more feedback and details on it this week, so that you're able to start reworking on it. And if we need, then we'll take up 1 or 2 sessions to, discuss some of the key concepts which you missed out in that particular unit.
Okay.
But between human resources, project management, and risk management, we'll be able to finish the optional units in the month of July.
Lovely. Lovely.
And then what we're going to do is, you've done the international healthcare policy. I'm going to start off with, in August, we're going to start off with the financial unit first, get the tough unit out of the way. It is not tough. The reason I say is some candidates or learners do not like the financial unit because it's got some calculations and other things in it.
Yeah, it's very big. Yeah.
So what we are going to do is provide you some handouts wherein, the project appraisal methods and the, basic interpreting of the financial statements will be small handouts, 2 to 3 pages, which you can read and understand very briefly. And then this unit is going to be taken by one of my colleagues called Anjum, who is a qualified accountant, and he will be delivering this particular unit so that you have a good understanding on how and why financials or finance is important criteria in the healthcare sector, specifically within the public sector, the NHS.
Okay.
So we will try and finish project management. It's a very interesting unit within this month. And then we'll start with the other mandatory units from next month.
Okay, lovely, lovely. Actually, with the human resource, I came across